Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome. It's Thursday night, last Thursday of the month. Got leap year, 29th of February. Got an outstanding book. I can't wait for the sequel because, it's got one of those cliffhangers. It starts off that you want something to happen. It doesn't happen, and it's going to happen soon, I hope, in the next book, maybe. But anyhow, tonight we're talking about Chris Weatherman, A American's Exploring Home, book 14, I believe, 12 of the Survivalist series. God, Morgan and his gang are just doing fantastic. They've been joined by some other people. I was talking Carl, the tactical rifleman, and Emery from the tactical rifleman. Emery, of course, is an IDF Special Forces guy, and then Carl, I believe Carl was 5th group. He may have been 3rd group, but anyhow, Carl was a Special Forces Arabic targets, let's call it that. And so his live is at 7 o'clock, the Tactical Rifleman, at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, right before we do our nonfiction book club. And so I recommend you subscribe to him. He is one of the characters mentioned in this book, as is Emery. And Chad was just the guy who was there when Chris was talking with Carl and Emery. And then there's another one, another warrant officer. I'm a warrant officer, so we warrant officers kind of stick together. Who's fantastic. And then last night on Angry American's channel, which is basically Chris Weatherman, Angry American, the author of this series, he has his live at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights. So I strongly recommend you subscribe to that as well. He had another guy on last night, Clay Martin, who was with, I want to say 3rd Special Forces Group. He was a USMC sniper, and then he went to 3rd Special Forces Group. He was an intel officer. He was an engineer, I believe, and golly, he did one. I think maybe he was a light weapons specialist. But anyhow, just great interview last night. It lasted an hour and a half. Just really fantastic. He's got a new book out, Wrath of the Wendigo. And so Chris does a very good job of promoting other writers. I saw him interview Franklin Horton. That was a phenomenal interview. He promoted Franklin Horton's books. And so I've got a list of books that have been recommended by Chris Weatherman, Angry American. And just, God, he finds these great authors and just promotes them. And it's just something else. I believe Blaine from Blue Dawn was also interviewed by Chris. That's where I found his the recommendation to get his books. And phenomenal book, superior book. There's just not that much prepping yet. I'm going to continue to read his books, Blaine Pardot's, because it's just phenomenal books. But there's not that much preparedness learning in the books. It's political intrigue. It's citizen against citizen intrigue. It's 1984 in 2024. It's a phenomenal book. But I don't think it meets our needs on what we need to do as far as fiction to get from fiction what we can do to survive in our current world situation. So with that, we are here tonight to discuss Exploring Home by Angry American and book 12 of the Survivalist series. Next month, we'll be doing No Time for Mourning, which is book 4 of Franklin Horton's Borrowed World series. He's got so many series, I got to remember which one I'm in. I've got a stack over there this tall of all of the Franklin Horton books. I'm trying to get Helen to read. She'll read a little bit of it and get tired and then go on to something else. Let me see who all's here. We'll get that part taken care of. And then from there, we'll get into some of the lessons that I learned in reading this book. And hopefully you've purchased the book and you're getting as much excitement and enjoyment out of it as I am. So Diana, too, welcome. Utah Mike, welcome to you as well. And you're doing fine. That's quite all right. Little Lone Prepper, I just chatted with Little Lone Prepper. She had a comment on my prepper tip that I put out today, and we were just chatting about that. Listen to Grandma, good evening, welcome. Diana too. Well, if you're talking about Pintex, Pintex is a little bit further south from where the fires are. But anyhow, that was one of the areas that we had to monitor when I worked for the Air Pollution Control Board, was because we had monitors around there to make sure there wasn't any nuclear radioactive elements in the air. How's that? So we kept the state keeps a very close eye on the perimeter of that area, so that so we make sure that the minute there's any kind of an emission, we can shut it down, and because just, one of those things you got to take extra precautions with. But yeah, it has now grown to where it's the largest range fire in Texas history. Gosh, I wish I still had my disaster response trailer. I would go up there and feed people Gatorade and food and everything else, and just see if I couldn't take up some collections and just go up there and feed them and take care of them. But because there's an awful lot of people volunteering and doing a lot of work in very austere conditions. We did have a cold front come through last night. That's helped us a little bit. It's getting a little bit wetter. Chances are, however, by Saturday, the wet cold will go away, and we'll be back into windy, hot conditions, and that's not going to be good for the flames at all. So, say your prayers, please, for the people of the Panhandle of Texas and into the western boundary of Oklahoma. We've even got some Oklahoma fire departments in responding with Texas and likewise, and so pretty good cooperation there across the states. And I jibe my Oklahomans an awful lot, my Oklahoma brothers an awful lot, but we're all the same one. We're all the same basic mentality from the two of them. As a matter of fact, the lady who introduced me to Helen was my first wife's best friend, and she was from Oklahoma. She said, you married the wrong girl. This is the right girl for you. And she was right. That was 40 years ago. That she said, you need to marry this girl. So I did, and it's been very good. And she knew me fairly well. She knew me well enough to know what I needed. That I needed a very bright, responsive, semi-sarcastic, extremely intelligent, rational, responsible person. And so I married an 8th grade special ed teacher, and that's what keeps me straight, right? She can use those techniques on me. Celtic Grandma, good evening. Welcome. Let me see here. What else we got here? Devil Dog Prepper. Oh, wow. If y'all haven't seen his newest one, I was just commenting on it. I even got his wife to comment on my comment. So he just has a brand new one out. I'll see if I can't forward that to you. But talking about, hey guys, things are getting kind of serious. You need to really start thinking about what you need to do. Welcome, Devil Dog Prepper. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Prepper Dog I was talking about. Devil Dog Prepper is another one totally. But welcome, Devil Dog Prepper. Holly Ivans, welcome. Ray McCoy, welcome. Little Lone Prepper, I said hi to already. Listen to Grandma is another one of our newer subscribers. So thank you for that. Listen to Grandma. And Ray McCoy, Holly Ivans, Prepper Book Club. Good evening. This is your strength, your fort. This is your specialty. And so, if I have a moderator on, if you could put Prepper Book Club's channel on there so people could link that, I would greatly appreciate that. If any of you need a shout out and need more subscribers, and you would like for one of my moderators to put your link out there so that people can follow you, please feel free to do so. I have no problems with that whatsoever. Just ask our moderator if they'll put your link up, and we'll see if we can't get that out for you. Ray McCoy, thank you so much. I'm glad that we are that you're joining us. Annie Luhu One is a neighbor, and so welcome, neighbor. Good to see you again. Happy to see you here. So okay, so once again we are reviewing A. American, Chris Weatherman's book, book 12 of the Survivalist series, Exploring Home. Phenomenal series for those of you who live in the area. If you want to read them, come on over and get them. Some of these authors are just phenomenal. We've had Chris Weatherman, the author, on the show before. He has shown up. As a matter of fact, Blaine Pardo, it turns out, last month monitored our show and gave us some feedback as far as afterwards on the review of his book. I've developed a very close relationship with Steve Smith, the author of the Stonemont series. We did all 6 of his books, and he sent me an autograph set of his books. So, and then I gave away the 6 that I had purchased when we did our 5,000 subscriber giveaway. So, we're doing some great books and just admirable, very admirable authors. And the bad thing now is we got such good books going that you want to get into the next one real quick, and you don't have time because you got another one obligated. So we've got book 12 that we're finishing up today. Subscribe to Chris Weatherman's channel, The Angry American, and that is on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. He does his lives. Tactical Rifleman is Carl, who is mentioned in here. He's one of the characters in here, and his sidekick Emery, IDF, Israeli Defense Forces Special Forces. He's mentioned in the book. So if you go to Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, you can watch them. Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, you can watch the author of this series. And then Steve Smith has Integrated Preparedness, and that's the Stonemont series. Although he's kind of loosening up, he's not doing as much on YouTube anymore. He's kind of switching more over to Rumble for a couple of reasons. Number one, on Rumble, you get you don't have the censorship that you have on YouTube. And number two, on Rumble, you make a little bit more money because you have to have subscribers. So people pay $1 a month just to see you on Rumble. I don't go to Rumble that much, but that's the only membership I have is Steve Smith's Integrated Preparedness. So next month, we're going to be doing book 4 of Franklin Horton's series, No Time for Mourning. And this is book 4 of the Borrowed World series. So what it was somebody recommended about a year and a half ago. Somebody said, hey, have you read any Franklin Horton books? I said, no. So I looked up Franklin Horton. I found an interview where Chris Weatherman, Angry American, interviewed him and kind of started promoting him. And so I did a couple, I bought the first 2 Franklin Horton books on Locker 9 series. So the theory there is that a young lady is at the University of Georgia. She's attending class. Her dad is a prepper. He says, if anything happens, here's a key to Locker 9. And he gives her basically a you store it type of a place. And so when something happens, she goes there and he's got all of her preps for her. He even has a Jeep for her and everything else. And so that, goes on. Then I started taking a look, and there was a, what's his name? Mad Max. So I saw Mad Max. I said, well, I'm going to buy Mad Max. So I bought Mad Max and I bought Locker 9. Then I was reading on Franklin Horton's website, and it said, don't read Mad Max until after you've read volume 2 of Locker 9, because that's where the 2 of them intertwine. So then I had to go buy volume 2 of Locker 9, read it, and then start into the Mad Max series. Now I'm on book 7 of Locker 9. I'm on book 4 of Mad Max, and we're now on book 4 of the Borrowed World, which is a totally different series, but it's also taking place. That's 4, 5, 6 mental retardation specialists from southwestern corner up in the Appalachians, almost of Virginia, who go to the Capitol for a convention. SHTF happens. They split up into 2 groups, and then the stories of how the 2 groups, only one of them makes it back. The other 3 make it back. So only 4 out of the 6 actually make it back to their home. So it's just really a phenomenal series. Lots of great prepping tips. So we've got so much to cover in here, and it's such a great book. Let me get into it. So Fred, of course, and has twins. One's a breech baby, and so I think that the lesson that we have here is we need to really be caught up on our first aid and everyday life events that are going on, and things that we take for granted, that we take people to the doctor for, and for example, childbirth and a complicated childbirth. If it weren't for the fact that Doc had a nurse, an RN, there to help him, the 2 of them kind of figured out how to deliver a breeched baby and did it, relatively easily. And then all the other things that happen with childbirth. So, the time that it takes for the mother to develop the milk and everything in between, and then what happens. Do you have swaddling clothes? Do you have diapers? Do you have bottles? Do you have and finally, in book 12, as a matter of fact, they find a breast pump and some milk bottles that are specifically made for natural milk. It's basically a plastic container with a little bag that goes inside, and then a fairly natural nipple. And so they find a couple cases of those and take them to Fred for the twins. So, things like that are going to become extremely important to us in a post-apocalyptic world. And so if you have young ones, or if you are childbearing age and are not going to have enough birth control, then I would strongly suggest you take this first aid thing that happens at the beginning of the book seriously. Make sure you are preparing for childbirth. Make sure you're taking care of having a newborn, a toddler, and a preschooler, and make sure you have clothes and all these other kinds of things that go with that, and nutrients and everything else. So I think that's going to be critical for you. Oh, you're going to enjoy the book. Rocky, I hate to do any. Gosh, I almost feel guilty about talking about it now. But one of the best books. I really enjoyed it. Okay, then we have. Okay. So he's talking about the Northeast and big cities, and how Mad Max, this big cities are going to be. He's talking about Miami. He's talking about Tampa. Well, Tampa got nuked. He's talking about New York City, New Jersey, that whole area up in there, Philadelphia, DC. That eastern megalopolis, and how people are going to be just kind of at contention with each other and fighting for what few precious commodities that there are, and infrastructure and services. With no electricity and water getting up to the 15th floor of an apartment building in Manhattan or in the Bronx, and so how do you going to? And then of course sewage flows down, so then it's going to accumulate down at the lowest levels, and all those things are going to happen Mad Max like in a larger city. So you want to get away from those as soon as possible. He said one of the questions he kind of asked was, he points it out, is how much influence on what you do as a prepper has been influenced by these Hollywood scenarios that we've seen going on, and how much of the prepper skills are you taking from those versus from people like Selko Begovic in his year in hell in Bosnia, the Bosnian War, or Furfala Aguirre's time down in Argentina during the financial collapse and civil disruption down there. So, are you being overly influenced by Hollywood, I guess is the question that he asks. And that's a good question. He talks about shoes, and the things are going to be critical. One guy's making a living by taking old tires and old carpet and making sandals out of them. So that's how he's making his living. And that's probably going to be very accurate after maybe a year. Make sure you have plenty of shoes. Make sure you have a good pair of boots and you have them worn in. Nothing worse than having to wear in a new pair of boots. I hated that when my boots were out in the Army because, and we tried to keep 2 pair of boots at all times so that you were alternate boots. Let them air out for one day while you're wearing the other pair. So you alternated your boots and which day you wore them. I actually had 4 pairs of boots. I had my old jungle boots, and I wore those occasionally, especially in hotter weather when I was here in the States. Not much call for them in Europe, I can tell you that much. Then I had a pair of German army boots that were a little bit higher and a little bit warmer, but Germans don't put arches in their boots. So I had to get some Dr. Scholl's inserts to put into the boots for arches, because I don't know why, they just do not believe in putting arches in their shoes and boots. At least they didn't back then. The other things they said they were going to be of high barter value through demonstration in the book are tobacco and coffee. And as a matter of fact, we can take that tobacco later on in the book If you live in Lake County, Florida, Ocala, Umatilla, Eustis, the area northwest of Orlando, this is, I mean, his classes on foraging, or his instruction on foraging, his instructions on how to cook the stuff that you foraged, then, that's going to be really, really good for you, because he does an awful lot of training in here on what the edibles are, especially in the river bottoms, and how to prepare them and how to make them edible and all this other kinds of stuff. Fantastic. If you're a Floridian, you really need this just for the foraging and cooking that he goes into. So he talks about page 53. I have socialism and what you can defend. So let me see what that is. Oh, okay. So I got it highlighted. In times of strife, everyone quickly becomes a good little socialist, thinking that those that have more than they'd have should share it. The only thing that you can claim is yours is what you can take or defend. What a great quote. So I think that kind of stresses, if people know that you have something, you have got to have a plan on how you can defend it, how you can protect it, how you can keep it. I don't advocate taking from anybody else. As a matter of fact, if anything, I'm a giver rather than a taker. I try to get one Bear Creek Country soup mix. I've probably got 3 5-gallon buckets full of them. I try to get one every time I go, once a month. And that way I'm going to be able to share those with my neighbors. So that's kind of my mentality. I'm not that much of a socialist as I am. But let me tell you something. If you're a parent and you have a starving child, I don't blame you. That would be extremely emotionally devastating to me to see my child suffer. When I think that there is somebody has something I need that can make my child better, I'm going to try to get it. That's just human nature. So I think that's going to be a reality in the future. And I think we have to be prepared for it. And I mean, gosh, what does it? Tough decision. The parent isn't taking it out on you. They are prioritizing the life of their child. And you are an impediment, or at least a roadblock to what they see as the growth and natural development of that child. And so that's where I think that's where there's going to be an inborn strife that we've got to be aware of. We've got to be prepared to meet. Birthing buckets. Golly, Holly, what a great idea. Devil Dog, no, the Army didn't hook me up. They issued me the 2 pairs when I was enlisted. Once I became a warrant officer, everything. They don't issue you anything clothing-wise. Everything I had to purchase. Now, the jungle boots were issued to me. They issued me a pair of sand, the desert sand colored boots, because we were right in that transition where we were going away from woodland cami with shiny black boots, and they were going over to the desert camouflage with the brown boots. And so they issued me 2 sets of desert camouflage and 1 set of brown boots to go for Desert Storm. But then as soon as Desert Storm was over, I had to return those. So I didn't get to keep any of it. I was hoping I would have lost it probably. Now I want to go down to class 6 or somewhere and get a pair of boots. But, a 72-year-old guy walking into class 6 to buy a pair of boots, I think would probably be kind of, crazy. Now the other pair I told you I bought those in Germany at the German PX. And so those were German boots. And so those, and they were expensive. That's what I really like about him, Prepper Book Club, is you get in this, as well as Franklin Horton. There's a lot of explanation on foraging, on equipment, on processes, methodologies. He talks in here about call signs in this chapter, in this book. I mean, there's a lot of good learning that you need to have for a post-apocalyptic world. And I think that just take notes. Take notes. I don't think Hollywood has influenced how I prep so much as the base level exploring possible scenarios of my own. I never expected so many. You are absolutely right, Foxers. I was talking with somebody, and I'm trying to start got to learn how to edit. I've got to learn how to edit. I've got to learn how to do a lot of good things rather than just be dependent upon these talks like this. But I think that one of the things I was talking about was I've never seen so many threats arising at the same time. We've got the Chinese threat. We've got. I think that no matter who wins the election come November, we're going to see problems as a result of that. One side will not accept what the other side does. We've got the war in Europe that is expanding. We've now got 3 countries that say they're going to send troops into Ukraine. And of course, President Putin gave his national address last night, which was daytime for us today. And no, I'm sorry. They're 8 hours ahead of us. So it was last night. So it was at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. No, about noon yesterday. He gave his address to the Duma. And so he told them that he's going to use nuclear weapons. If any of those Western NATO forces get involved in Ukraine, then it's going to be a nuclear war. So now we've got this threat of nuclear war. We've got, the financial markets are going down. I don't know how many of you watch Gregory Mannarino, but every stock market we have, New York, Chicago, NASDAQ, they all hit record highs today. Bitcoin is at a record high. He says that hyperinflation is imminent, and and so the financial meltdown is there. If you watch Suspicious Observer, the poll reversals are coming. Ice Age Farmer got kicked off of YouTube for talking about the grand solar minimum, but it looks like it's happening. And there's all kinds of stuff that's going on. I think we're ripe for another race war. I think that all these illegal aliens who have invaded our country, that's going to cause another war inside our country. So I think there's an awful lot of things that are all converging as one threat towards us at the same time. And it's just saying, are you going to exist? And then I've got neighbors who have no interest in it whatsoever and don't care whether we're prepared or not. That claws me. I can't believe it. People who don't prep and think they will just go get it from others will have a wide rude way. Oh, you're absolutely right. Yugo. That's a new name too. It means south in at least in Russian, Yug, and most Slavic languages mean south. So is that what it means? Does it mean south in your Slavic language, or is it just your name? Okay. Drifter says that Chris's books are all outstanding as well. Drifter, welcome. You're a new one too. So happy to see you. Let me see. My wife, as a matter of fact, when I was talking to her today, she said, "Lee, did you know that the Pope is in the hospital?" I said, "Yeah." And she doesn't watch the news. She had a car wreck, 4 years ago. And so in the car wreck, she was T-boned and it broke her arm in 3 places. That's still not healed. She had 7 fractures to her pelvis. The seatbelt almost amputated her breast. It did. It totally severed her bicep in this arm. We got 1/3 of it reconnected. But the doctors say that the pain and everything else that's going to do to reconnect the other 2/3 is not worth the gain she's going to get. She can lift up to 5 pounds right now with that one arm, but her head went through the window. And so she has traumatic brain injury. So she takes things very emotionally, and she's a little bit more susceptible to emotions than she was before the car wreck. So one of the things we do to keep her from getting too concerned, worried, or anxious is we don't watch too much of the news with her around when she's in the room. So just kind of depresses her, and that takes a toll. Thank you, Little Lone Prepper. I'm waiting for Triple G Farms to show up. I owe him an apology. I rewatched it last night. I never did thank him for his donation last night. He gave a nice donation, and so gosh, Triple G Farms, thank you so much. I'll acknowledge you here tonight. I don't know what I'd do without you, buddy. You're just. I have so many good friends who offer such good information. Such great chats. You share ideas. You help each other, and that's just what we're all here for. Okay. He talks about and once again, we're back to those medical conditions that we need to be prepared for: lice, insect bites. Coming up with some plan for insect and rodent control, so that you reduce different diseases that can happen as a result of the insects and rodents. As a matter of fact, in this book, in book 12 and later on, what we see is we've got 4 cases of malaria. And that's probably because the mosquito population has not been kept down through artificial means, some of the barriers that we have. So, get yourself plenty of citronella. As a matter of fact, you'll see it on my stock, as a result of reading the book, you'll see it in my pepper pantry haul Saturday, but I went out and got some mosquito sticks. And so those are basically citronella. You know those sparklers you buy kids for the 4th of July and everything that are actually more dangerous than a firecracker? But that's what these are. These are those almost like a sparkler stick, and it's citronella. It's like a big candle, and so we've got to consider how are we going to keep our insects down. So citronella candles is going to be very important to you. Insect repellent, insecticide. Make sure you get plenty of those. That's another key learning from this book. Make sure you have prescription drugs for your chronic illnesses. There's a case in here of diabetes. And I just got my blood test back from my physical, and I'm doing great. Blood work came out great. I'm looking good. If I can just get my lungs cleared up and my esophagus, then I'd be one happy camper. And if I could get my hip to heal so that I could maybe get back to a little bit of walking and everything. But, one thing I do know is at my age, it's to the point now to where, as I was working on my bug out bag, it's to the point now to where I don't think I could carry my bug out bag as far as I could have 30, 40 years ago. And so now I have it zip tied to a 2-wheel dolly. So, and then with enough space underneath where I can put a case of water and a case of MREs or other kinds of foods or whatever. Okay. So, and then he talks an awful lot about planning a group and coming together. So, right now I'm trying my darndest to get a group together here. I've only got 4 families here in the neighborhood that are interested. I've got some friends from other areas. Got friends from Luling and San Antonio and Dallas, and I've got 2 friends from Liberty Hill. We got a good group of those, but we're just not close enough, if you know what I mean. I want the neighborhood to kind of coalesce. That's not happening. I've only got 4 families out of 120. But if you take a look at what happened in the book, and it's kind of talked about in this, everything kind of just came together, gelled together over time from different places, and people then migrated to one central location. So there's only a couple key core families, Danny and his wife, Morgan and his wife, 1 or 2 other families. They go and get Morgan's parents from upriver, 6 hours upriver, and bring them back down. So there's very little that is what you might call a organic prepping group. The rest of them are just coming in. And as they come in, they like what they see and they stay. And so that may be the reality that we're faced with as we get into this, new world order after SHTF. And the thing there that bothers me is the trust factor. Like Dalton in this book. I mean, if I came across Dalton right now, I probably would not trust him as far as I could throw him, and I couldn't throw him an inch because he's just that strange, if you know what I mean. So how do you let somebody know, hey, this is what I have, this is where it is, this is my family, I'm going to take a nap, you take care of my family? That kind of trust just does not develop overnight. So and how Morgan, Jess, and Thad, the original 3 of this group, how they kind of came together. They supported each other. They defended each other. That's what's going to be critical is developing that kind of trust. And then Eric and Fred, and as everybody else started coming in. Theoxera says, some authors really irritate me through with not really knowing the subject, but not A. American, Rawls, Bracken, and many others. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that Chris has done a very good job of research, and he really knows his stuff. Let me see. Yep. And so, make sure you have, I tell you, I am scared of my neighbors. You got to get this. And I just got a distributor notification on this today that they now have pediatric medications. So I've got to do a little bit more research on that tomorrow. I wanted to make sure I had everything straightened up for tonight. And but tomorrow I'll research that. I've also just got a distributorship with a company called Simpure, Simpure, and they are a new water filtration and distribution. What I like about them, I saw them on Rudy's channel on Alaska Prepper, but it looks like the Alexa Pure, it looks like the Big Berkey, and then the tube as it comes out has a USB powered or 110 powered ultraviolet light that also takes care of any protozoa and any living bacteria as it comes through the spigot. So you've not only got the filtered stuff going on, but now you've got the protozoa killer through the UV light in it. And so I'm ordering one tomorrow. I got it, so we'll see how that goes. I'll give you a review on that, but I think it's close to $300. Helen's going to kill me. Oh, she's going to kill me. I know. If I'm not alive 2 weeks from today, when she comes home, please, call the police. Yes, absolutely. And I had a battalion commander. As a matter of fact, he was the best man at Helen and my wedding back in Goodfellow. He was a marathon runner, and he turned me on to Shoe Goose. So if nothing else, get yourself, extra shoelaces, get yourself a couple tubes of shoe goo, GOO. And it's basically an adhesive you can put on the soles of your shoes where they're wearing thin and basically replaces the sole. So it's a good sole repair kit. But I really want to get, I've got my jungle boots. I've got one pair of black combat boots, and then I've got my German combat boots out in the garage. I've got my set of German hiking mountain boots in the closet. So I think I got 4 good set pair of boots. I would like to get one other though, but I'll probably be wearing the jungle boots more than anything else because I've developed an allergy to leather. So we'll see what happens there. Foxtrot says many of the Mormons on the Oregon Trail used hand carts for their family. Yep, and that's what I'll be doing. Citronella is an abortificant. Use it sparingly around pregnant women. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so now I know basically how to pronounce it. Abortificant from abort. Okay, you can toss crushed rosemary in the fire, and that will help to keep the bugs down too. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. I might leave that up there for a while so that people can make sure that they get that. Thank you for sharing that. Little on Prepper added some of the pinworm medicine because it's easy for kids to get infected even when there's access to soap and hot water. We're going to get into that. That's the very next subject on my list here that he talks about. Would like to meet up for coffee and chat. Absolutely, Annie Luhu. Tomorrow morning, I'm a member of the Divine Mercy group at the church. And so we meet at 9 o'clock, and from 9 to 10:30, we pray for world peace. And so, that takes up from 9 to 10:30. Of course, we're in Lent now. So from 10:30 to 11:30, we do the Stations of the Cross. And then at 12:05, there's Mass. But I'm available anytime after 12:05 tomorrow. And Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, I go to the Williamson County ham breakfast. I probably won't be doing that this Saturday. There's a bunch of older guys, and I'm still going to be taking my lung medication for the walking pneumonia. I definitely don't want to cough and give them anything. They're susceptible. Even though I don't think I'm that contagious, I probably won't be at the breakfast Saturday morning. We've got to get together. Absolutely. I got to pick your brain. Got to find out what you know and how much I can take from you as far as learning from you. I do have one of those 4-wheeled carts. So what happened was before we got the rainwater catchment system for Christmas 3 years ago, my daughter asked me, "Dad, what do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "Well, there's 2 things I really, really want. There's a cartridge that fits into your rifle, and it's a laser, And so you put it into the chamber of your weapon, and you have to buy them in the caliber that you want for the weapon you're going to zero. And it has a laser, and it shoots straight down the middle of your bore of your gun. And then you can adjust your sights at whatever distance you want, so that your sight and that laser point that it points out there are intersecting. So it's basically a cold zero of your weapon. So she bought me one of those. She bought me two of those, two different calibers. And then she also bought me a 4-wheel cart, one of those Academies, that it's 4-wheel with kind of a soft side, canvas side, and they come up and down. And so she bought me one of those. Now I found one even better. I found a $150 wrought iron one at Home Depot. So I'm gonna, that's. But if I get this water purification system, and I've got to prioritize. I've got to prioritize, because we just don't have that kind of money. I'm a retired soldier. There he is, Triple G Farms. I was just telling everybody earlier that you left a donation on the channel last night, and I went back and I was worried that I hadn't acknowledged it, and thanked you for it, and how much it means to me. And I was totally deficient. I watched my hour-long show, although I do get paid for that. But I think I get 6 cents because I watched it all the way through with all the commercials. But anyhow, I failed to thank you, and so I want to apologize I thank you so much. You're such a great friend. You're such a great supporter of the channel. And please, please, please don't think that I don't appreciate it and that I don't value you extremely. I am so sorry that I was so reticent in my acknowledgement of you giving. So thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. I mean that. But welcome. It's always great to see you. I was just telling everybody I'm probably not going to do most of my Saturday socializing. I may not drive up to Lampasas this coming Saturday either. But Luhu is talking about, she's in Liberty Hill. So, we might, the three of us, get together. That might be a good thing for the three of us to get together and have a cup of coffee. So that would be a great time. Boy, that would be a great time. Okay. So if Yoxers once had a house, they planted a 4-inch rosemary plant that grew into a 3x4 bush. Never had insect problems there. Oh, okay, I'm going to write that down. Thank you. I guess if I've got 2 people saying get rosemary, I'm going to get rosemary. I'll talk to Mark about that tomorrow. Mark owns the, what do you call it? Flower store that I go to, the gardening center. I'm going to say yes because I don't know what they are. What's her name? Maggie said, "Hey Lee, what you need to do is develop a wish list on Amazon so that people can just buy things that you want on Amazon." Well, I have an Amazon wish list, but it's under my name instead of under Cold War Prepper. So I got to find out how to create a second one, and I'll do that with Cold War Prepper as well. Flea and tick medicine is going to be extremely important. I agree, which brings me to that other one that was next on my list. Was they talk about the infestation of lice in Central Florida because of lack of other insect and rodent control and everything else. And so you got to be prepared for ticks and lice. And of course, you're also going to have all the other ground insects that cause you problems. Chiggers and all that kinds of stuff that are going to just be rampant. So insect and rodent control are going to be extremely important when there aren't as much of it available as we have now. Like I have people come take care of my yard. They spray my yard every month for something or other. And, so True Green is coming by, and then I've got an insect company comes by and keeps all the ants away. We've got problems with fire ants here in Central Texas. So that's going to be a population that extremely grows in a post-apocalyptic world because we aren't there taking care of it. So insecticide, and insect things to protect for first aid from insect bites. So this is when I planted my potatoes the other week. This is a fire ant bite right there. It was in the dirt where I was planting my fire ants. And I mean, I put Clorox on it, which is what you're supposed to do as soon as you get one. It's going to leave a permanent mark there. That I've learned that when you get a real good fire ant bite, it leaves a scar. Okay. Oh, wow. I've been having Google Maps up while they're doing it, so I do the same thing, and trying to see where things are. So yeah, that's uh, it's kind of fun to do that because it's so realistic. Now, I was talking with Franklin Horton, and he says that a lot of the places in his series are fictional until you get to book 4, and then he gave up on it. And he says now they're a little bit more reality based as far as locations and everything else. So we'll see how that goes. Joe Hornick. Welcome. Good to see you too. So obviously I missed something. Any of you who is asking a question. What do I think about goldbacks? I agree with Phioxerus. I don't have any goldbacks. As a matter of fact, I was in a multi-level marketing company called, what was the name? It was out of Germany. And you could invest $25 a month, and they would figure out how much gold you bought down to 1/1000th of an ounce. And actually, it was in grams, so down to 1,000th of a gram. And then when you got so many grams, you could have them ship it to you. Well, I had 21 grams of gold purchased that I had purchased when the guy went crazy and the company went bankrupt. And so the company, Karat Gold, KARATGOLD. The company went bankrupt. Evidently, there were some fishy things going on in Germany, and they owe me 21 grams of gold. So 21 grams is 2/3 of an ounce. An ounce is 31 grams of gold. So I've got 2/3 of an ounce of gold that I'll never see. So taught me a lesson. So I don't do gold, and I don't do gold backs. I have a very good friend. I bought 1 ounce of gold from him when he got into financial problems here a while ago, and I bought it at spot. And then he watched it as gold went up and down. He says, "Well, you took me because now it's worth this much money." I said, "Wasn't that worth that much money when I bought it from you?" So he said, "Hey, Lee, you want to buy another ounce?" I said, "Nope. I learned my lesson last time." I said, "So I'll take you to the guy that I buy and trade from." And took him to James Arnold over at Austin's Best Gold and Coin down in Round Rock and downtown Round Rock. And James says, "Well, I'm not buying it because everybody's trying to unload. Gold is at a price now where everybody's trying to unload it and nobody's buying. So I'm overstocked in gold and I'm not going to buy anymore." I said, "Okay, well, let's go visit Scott over in Georgetown." And so we went and talked to Scott, and Scott bought it from him for $80 below spot. And so I looked at him and said, "Look, I paid you spot and you thought you got ripped off. This guy's offering you 80 below and you're happy." I said, "I don't understand this. If you hadn't watched so closely and accused me of ripping you off because you lost $20 when the price went down or when the price went up, I would have bought it from you for spot and you would have saved that $80. But I'm not going to do that anymore because you did that." And he's, "Oh my, well, let me take you out to dinner. I'm sorry, And so he took me out to dinner and paid for dinner to an atonement for questioning my integrity, because I would have purchased it from him at spot. We both would have won, because typically you buy it at spot plus and sell it at spot minus. If I bought it at spot and he got spot and I got spot, we'd both be winners. And this is the way I look at it. Absolutely, Mama Rocks. I would be more than happy to do that. I'm talking tomorrow, and we're going to see if we can't get them shipped. I want one of each system. I want the countertop system, and I want the hanging system. They have a hanging system pretty much like a life straw. Now, it does not have the UV capability, but it does have replaceable filters, unlike the one I have, current one I have. So I'm going to get the hanging bag with 4 extra filters, and I'm going to get the countertop with 4 extra filters, and I'm going to try to see if I can't finagle some kind of a deal, like maybe if I promise to mention their name or something if I like it and don't send it back, that if I keep it, then I'll give them some marketing and stuff like that. But we'll see what we can do tomorrow. I'm hoping I don't send it back. I'm hoping. I'm really impressed with it. Usually when Rudy likes something and recommends it, it's a good thing. Rudy does a very good job of reviewing things. You're absolutely right. Stock up on doxycycline and all those other meds, because dysentery, and that's something that you can control, but it's infectious and it's not going to be controlled by your neighbors. My next door neighbor, I told her, I said, plan for what you're going to do, because all that food you're putting in you's got to go somewhere. And if it just accumulates out in the yard, it's going to affect both of us. So we got to plan for that. What are we going to do to control our waste, human waste, as well as bodily function waste, as well as trash and stuff like that? Get it under control. Have a plan for that now. That's something you need to make sure you have planned in advance. The vast majority, so James knows, when he sees me come in the door, the first thing he does is he pulls out his Benjamin Franklin tray, he pulls out his Morgan tray, and he pulls out his Mercury dime tray. Those are the 3 things I love. I love Morgan silver dollars. As a matter of fact, I don't think I put it up yet. I just bought one. I haven't put it up yet. I just emptied in my pockets. Girls. So the last time I was close to his store, I picked up 3 Morgans, and then I went back and got one more. And then I picked up 10 Mercury dimes, and that was just at $100. So you got to be careful. I mean, 3 years ago, I could have gotten all that for $50. It's doubled in price. So it's terrible. Okay, so George says there was a Sarge's cabin marked to the west of the Swanee River in the jungle, but that was pulled. Wow, I bet. Didn't he blow it up? I mean, I thought he blew it up when the DHS went down there to get him. Let me see. Devil Dog, have a great night. Please stay safe. Watch out. All kinds of strange things happening, and make sure you have your get home bag with you all the time. Grew up in Dunedin, now live in PA, so it was cool to follow. Okay. So then he talks about cornhole, how one day they had a free afternoon, they were playing cornhole. Got to get a cornhole game. I bought one for the boys, for my grandsons, and they took it with them up to Philadelphia. So we got to get another one here for the area. I talked about foraging already. Oh, he talks about antennas, and he talks about the ground plane antennas. He talks about vertical and horizontal polarization. He talks about a slope antenna. He talks about dipoles. He talks about long wires. So a lot of good antenna information in this book as well. A slope wire is what's going to be best for you, because when you have a horizontal antenna, horizontal polarization, your signal is basically vertical. Okay, so your emissions are going to go this way, and when you have your antenna, it's going to be perpendicular to the run of the antenna. Okay, now you can have what they call a slope antenna. And so typically these are going to be what they call half wavelength antennas. So you're going to kind of have the length of your antenna half the wavelength of the frequency you're transmitting on. So to determine wavelength, it's a very simple formula: 300 megahertz divided by whatever frequency you're going to be transmitting on, and that will give you your wavelength. So for example, 300 megahertz divided by your transmission and receiving frequency of 30 megahertz, 300 divided by 30 is 10 meter. So 30 megahertz is in the 10 meter band. And those are going to get longer as you get down into the lower frequencies. They get into the centimeters as you get up into high VHF, UHF, so it's going to be centimeter length antennas. And that's why you see these very short police cars, for example. They have a little blade antenna. That's all they need because of the very extremely high frequencies, UHF frequencies that they have for that. Car antennas are VHF, UHF. So they're fairly small as well. But when you're talking HF, man, those suckers can really get out there. When you're talking SLF, super low frequency, which is what we use for our nuclear forces, that's a 3-mile long antenna that they trail behind either a submarine or an airplane in the air. So, I mean, they get crazy, but they talk about a slope antenna. So when you have a slope antenna, you're taking a pole and putting it up in the air like this. Then you're going to take your wire, okay, and you're going to run it at an angle down to the ground. So notice this is kind of at a 45-degree angle to the ground. So now you're getting the advantage of both horizontal and vertical polarization. Okay. You're also still only going to get relatively bidirectional plus or minus 15 degrees each side. So you're going to have about a 30-degree spread, and it goes out. Another thing they talk about in the book that's very critical that you understand, especially with HF and MF, and very low, I'm going to say probably up to about 35 megahertz in the VHF band. But you have two waves that come off of an antenna when you're transmitting. One of them is the air wave, and what you're going to do is it goes up into the ionosphere and into the troposphere, and then because of the very long wavelength, okay, so the low frequency, so you've got a very long wavelength, and it's going to bounce off of the ionosphere back down to Earth. And that's how on HF you can listen to Cairo, you can listen to Tel Aviv, you can listen to Moscow from here in Austin. Okay, so it's because they bend off of the atmosphere and come back down to Earth. There's also a ground plane version of that. Okay, so for example, with AM radio, you notice there are sometimes, like we can listen to KOMA sometimes during the night because the waves just bend and we get down here. And so I'm listening to Oklahoma City, 1490 on AM. But during the daytime, I can't because the radio wave propagation isn't that way. But you have this ground wave, okay? That's what AM radio stations primarily do, is they give the ground wave to the people who are listening to them in that area. Now, in between where the last transmission is picked up by the ground wave and the first wave that comes back down that's bounced off of the troposphere, that distance in between, you don't hear anything. Okay, and that's called the skip zone. So they talk about that in here too, and how you need to be prepared to cover that skip zone. So what they're planning on doing is using UHF repeaters, which is basically the Baofeng UV5R, the Yaesu YE6. Baofeng has an 8 now out. But anyhow, you're going to use these ham radios in the UHF range, and that's going to be your coverage in that skip zone area where you don't have any HF coverage. They get into an awful lot of military terminology as far as reporting, planning, and everything else. So they talk about they call it the op ord in the book. We call it the standard 5-paragraph op order. So the standard 5-paragraph op order is paragraph 1 is situation, 2 is the mission. What is it you need to accomplish? Number 3 is how are you going to do it, the execution. Number 4 is administrative and logistics information like communication. No, communications is paragraph 5. So you're going to have, fuel, ammunition, resupply points. You're going to have medical points. You're going to have all those things fall under administration and logistics on how you're going to support this operation. Then paragraph 5 is communications and signal. And so, what are the call signs, frequencies? What are you going to use as far as encryption devices and all that kinds of stuff? So that's the 5-paragraph standard op ord that they're talking about in the book. He also talks about fragos. So that's a fragmentary order. So that means get prepared. I'm going to have an op ord out to you within the next 8 to 12 hours. But, here's the basic primary mission and location. And that way the troops know what they need to pack up on, stack up on, how long they'll be gone. So they can get their gear ready and test it and make sure that everything's working. One of the things, they talk a little bit about scouting, and it's a very important point. But if you think about it, in nature, everything is up and down. Okay. If it's natural, it's up and down. If it's an animal, it goes sideways. Okay. With the exception of birds, and they go kind of in an angle. But any horizontal movement that you have out in a natural environment is going to be a living, breathing object. Human being, dog, cat, bobcat, horse, squirrel, whatever. So when you see that horizontal movement, you should automatically be suspicious of it and watch it closer, because it's a living being that could become an aggressor to you. And then what's the last one here? Oh, I was going to go to the garage and get it, and I forgot to do it. I got distracted. I don't know what I was doing, but I got distracted. But one of the things that you've got to get in your preps is a tortilla press. If you're not a great bread maker, and I am not a great bread maker, I probably watched 4 or 5 videos today on bread making, because I want to use my new sourdough starter kit. But anyhow, I do have a tortilla press, because flatbread, non-leavened, unleavened bread, Passover bread, is going to be our primary thing, and that's and you've got tortillas is one of the main things for that. So I bought a tortilla press a while back. Probably 5 years ago, and it's out in the garage. And unfortunately, it's cast iron, so it may have rusted a little bit because I've never used it. But I need to find that and get it all taken care of and be prepared for the apocalypse, so we can have tortillas. And what he's talking about is their primary breakfast. They have a whole bunch of chickens, and I've been reading Daisy's. What's her first name? She's got a book on how to survive, how to feed your family with How to Feed Your Family Forever is what I'm reading. And the first 7 chapters are nothing but eggs and chickens and eggs. And we're getting into goats now. But she's talking about, the value of eggs. And so one of the things Morgan and his group have is they have a whole bunch of chickens and a whole bunch of pigs. And so they got plenty of bacon and eggs. And but eggs you scramble them, you put them in a tortilla, you got a breakfast taco, and it's going to be pretty good. So make sure you get a tortilla press, or at least have a rolling pin and some sort of a large circumference. I want to say at least an 8-inch diameter, possibly a 10 or a 12-inch diameter, depending on how big you want your tortillas to be. If you do that, if you roll it out, and one of the things you can do is get a flat rolling pin, and then they do sell shims for how thick you want it to be. So you go to a chef store. I've got Restaurant Supply Depot, which is where I have a membership because of my disaster response trailer I used to have. But they have shims that you can put on either side of that rolling pin, and it's going to be the height or the thickness of whatever it is you want to roll out. So you can roll them out. I've got 8-inch shims, so I can take my roller and I can roll out a piece of bread, flatbread, to 1/8 of an inch, and then you get a big 8-inch or plate or something like that, and just cut it out for the circle. You got a fantastic tortilla. Then roll up what you didn't cut out, the excess, put it back together, roll it out again, and you've got, you can make as many as you want. So let me see. Faxer says, so we talked about that. Let me see. Yeah, and I think, and the thing is, because right now silver's around, I'm going to use very approximate numbers, 25 cents, I wish, $25 an ounce, and gold is right around 2,000. Very, very guesstimated issue there, but so 1 ounce of gold is going to be 2,000. 1 ounce of silver is 25. I think it's going to be far, far better to have silver than it will be to have gold. Where's my wallet? So in my wallet, I carry. This is that company I told you. Well, this is the same thing, but it's just a different company. But this is 1 gram of gold. So that's 1/30th of $2,000. So that's about $70 worth of gold. And then I also have a Band-Aid. And then this is 1/20th of an ounce of gold. So this is just slightly larger than the other one. This is going to be worth right at 100. So because carrying a whole bunch of silver with that value I would need suspenders with my belt. Went today, voted, yay. Let me see. We're part of Super Tuesday, so so our voting day is Tuesday. Matter of fact, I just saw that the Texas Supreme Court said that this is the last time we can do early voting unless we amend the Constitution, because the Constitution doesn't allow for early voting. We only have one voting day officially in Texas. And so that's going to be interesting. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, Holly, I think it's 1964. 1965 and 66 were the 40% Kennedy halftime. I could be wrong, but I think it's 1964. That for some reason I've always said 64 and before. I might have a little bit of a disagreement there with you, Feoxerus, only because, especially with precious metals, if I don't hold it, I don't own it. I can tell you that right now. I own 21 grams of gold that are somewhere in Carat Gold's vaults in Stuttgart, Germany right now. And when SHTF happens, there's no, well, I can tell you, even if SHTF doesn't happen, I'm never getting that 21 grams of gold. We're talking 2/3 of $2,000. So $1,400 is sitting over in Stuttgart, Germany, in somebody else's pockets. I buy an American Silver Eagle for the birth year of all of my children and grandchildren. I even bought one. My son-in-law went crazy. I bought one for him. I don't know. Is that Blue Dawn with Blaine Pardo? I don't know. Oh, no. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't read it. Yeah, right. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you will. Let me know. And I need to go out and get mine and get it cleaned up and practice with it. Let me see what else we have. We're pretty close to on time, aren't we? Is this talking about the 64 and below and before, Holly? Okay, so there we are. We're right at it. Oh gosh, we're overtime. It's an hour and 10 minutes. Can't believe I did it again. Wow. Let me tell you, I love Chris Weatherman's books. I love this series. It ends up, it starts out, they're trying to get Tabor. If you remember, Tabor was the guy who ran the DHS camp, and they thought they had gotten rid of him. They had him on a bus. They were shipping him off to a detention facility. They came across the bus all shot up. No survivors. Didn't find him. They didn't find the Japanese, I think his name is Nagoro or something like that. Nagata. But anyhow, the Tabor and the torturer are lost. They didn't find those. I think later on we got Naguma or Nagoto or whatever. He was taken care of in a different book later on. But Tabor is still missing. We found that group, his encampment, last book. I thought that was going to come to a head this book. So you've got one very small chapter of that, of beginning that encounter at this book, at the end of this book. And they've got two, Tabor has two of his guys out doing a water collection, and Carl, Emery, Dalton come upon them, and Mikey, and they kind of do a thing with them. Then Tabor calls in a Hind helicopter. So they call to Sarge and Morgan and they're racing to the rescue, and they shoot down the Hind, which saves Carl, Emery, Dalton, and Mike. And but then while they're doing that, they get a call back from the Army, who has now moved in with the National Guard, and they say, return to base now because you aren't going to believe what's happening. So it sounds like there's a general assault happening by the Russians and the Cubans against the forces in Eustis, Umatilla, and so now they got to go back and help defend against that in contravention to, they were told that they wanted them to go out and possibly take a look at Canaveral, because they wanted to use that as a port to bring in supplies for the civilians. So all this stuff is kind of happening. They're trying to get settled in with supplies, and the Army taking care of the residents of the area. They've appointed Morgan governor as well as sheriff. He's appointed Thad as the lieutenant governor. Eric is now the commander of the Florida militia. He's trying to get all that up. Emery, Carl, Dalton, and a couple other characters are kind of help doing the training for the munition. God, mouth work, militia. And so things just really, so it's not out yet. I've got to get book 13. It leaves on a cliffhanger where you've got to get that book in your hands. That's all there is to it. Okay, so that's where we are. Okay. Oh, by the way, that's one of the things that Gregory Mannarino was talking about today, was because the stock market, American Exchange, New York Exchange, NASDAQ, one of the Bitcoins are at record all-time highs. So insider selling is just going crazy. Everybody's taking their max profits that they can and kind of getting out. And he says, Gregory Mannarino is predicting a crash. And he is also predicting a hyperinflation. So, so that's where I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I should have covered it up. Okay, Book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. Should have it tabbed here. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. Pray for the people in the Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma. That fire is just devastating. We did have our first loss of human life, and it's just unbelievable. So keep those people in your prayers. I would greatly appreciate that. And remember, thank you so much. Once again, you've done an outstanding job of sharing with each other great information, great tips, great suggestions. I've even got notes here. Thank you for sharing that. Rosemary, got to get some rosemary to plant. So I think we got it taken care of. Please remember, however, Prepperwood Club, have a great evening. That we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Keep reading those great books. Okay, keep on with your life learning experiences, so you can share those with others, because I learn from you every time we get together. So remember that we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Continue your outstanding job of being kind, polite, and respectful with each other, because we've got to rebuild this world when it's all over, and we are all we have. So we're going to get through this together. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.